Welcome back to Pittsburgh Sports Talk. I'm your host, Randy the Tank Tantlinger. Thanks for joining me right here every Sunday morning on The Ticket, baby. Buy the ticket, take the ride. You know who's going to be taking a ride? You know, one of those fancy cars. Remember, he used to come to training camp in a Rolls Royce. This year, he came in a helicopter. I actually saw AB when I was doing the live show from Steelers training camp this year and said, hey, AB, you ought to come in next year with a bunch of, like Hannibal Lecter all tied up in a shirt that says dangerous and some police escorts. And he liked that. But I don't think we're going to get to see that. All right, carrying on our Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde comparison with Antonio Brown, we talked about Mr. Jekyll, Dr. Jekyll, being the rational one, and how the argument just stands that, well, AB is the greatest wide receiver after 9 seasons to ever play in the Steelers' history and wear a black and gold uniform. You may be burning his jerseys right now, but you can't run away from the statistics. In the last segment, we compared him to, well, the other greatest wide receiver in Pittsburgh Steelers history was, well, Lynn Swann, arguably. Until this point, until AB came, everybody said it's Lynn Swann. He's the litmus test. He's the high water mark. He's the apple of our eyes. He's the cherry on the cake, ice cream, whatever you want to put a cherry on. We compared notes. Lynn Swann also only played 9 seasons in a Steelers uniform. Prematurely retired due to concussions. He was never a problem child, Lynn Swann. But in his 9 years, he put up half the numbers AB has. Roughly over 5,000 yards. AB has roughly over 10,000. Of course, we get that. It's a passing league now. So, when it comes to the rational, statistical side of Antonio Brown and his 9-year career here in Pittsburgh, he is the greatest wide receiver. Perhaps that's why you're so upset with him now. Because he's gone. He ain't coming back. Of course, that does segue into the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde theory. Mr. Hyde, of course, being the crazier of the two and the animal. The insane one. And that's where we go next when we talk about AB. All right. Did you ever see the movie Sound of Music from the 1960s? It was a great song in that. What do you do with a problem like Maria? Da-da-da-da. What do you do with a problem like Antonio Brown? Well, one of his ex-teammates sounded off about his time with Antonio Brown. He called him a selfish fraud. Yeah, Ryan Clark, who's now on ESPN. Now, I don't care for Ryan Clark at all. Just on a side note, he always treated Pittsburgh media horribly, was ignorant, rude, thinks he's a tough guy. And I can tell you that a former Joe Bendel up here in Pittsburgh with ESPN had a run-in with him. I had a run-in with Ryan Clark 10 years ago. Was in the locker room at Christmas time asking the simple, horrible question, this mean question, asking the players like Troy Polamalu and Ben and Ryan Clark, what do you want for Christmas? And was recording it. Well, Ryan Clark had a problem with me that day. And you never met me. There's a reason they call me the Tank. 6 foot. 260, played a little ball pit back in the day, boxed, was in the Army, and I really don't take crap from anybody. But I had to bite my tongue that day about Ryan Clark because I was, well, in their house, and I was, well, a professional and in the media. So I quickly smiled and went on my way. But I'm not a big fan of Ryan Clark. He calls AB a selfish fraud as a teammate. This may very well be, but I can tell you Ryan Clark himself was a jackass. So I have to consider the source with Ryan Clark, whereas not too many other players have come out, really frustrated about Ryan, about AB. But look, the Mr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll aspect of AB, it's there. It's real. You set aside the fact that he is the greatest wide receiver to ever play for the Steelers. You set aside the fact that he is one of the top 3 wide receivers in the league. If he went about his business in an orderly fashion and was a team player, there is no I in team, maybe, you'd love this guy. In fact, we wouldn't be where we are right now. Now, you can lay a lot of this, and you have to follow me on this. If you're a fan of the show and you listen to me, you know I couldn't stand Todd Haley. If anybody's a fraud, it's Todd Haley. Todd Haley never played football in his life. Do you know that? Yeah, Todd Haley, who was fired by the Steelers, fired by the Chiefs, fired halfway through the season with the Cleveland Clowns, never played it down in his life. Tank, how did he become a NFL offensive coordinator? Well, it's called nepotism. Daddy knew somebody with the Pittsburgh Steelers a long time ago. Daddy got Todd Haley a job in the film room. Now follow my argument here and how this leads to AB and Le'Veon Bell wanting to leave Pittsburgh. Daddy got Todd Haley his job. Then he got lucky and he went up to New York as a wide receivers coach. Now, to be a wide receivers coach it's one of the jobs they give you to start out when you're coaching. He got lucky. Remember Keyshawn throw me the damn ball Johnson up there with the New York Jets? That's who Todd Haley was coaching. He then went down to Dallas where he coached. Well, I'm sure even Terrell Owens was happy that Tony Romo was throwing the ball. So Todd Haley was coaching Terrell Owens. You see the pattern here. Somehow Todd Haley went on to coach the Kansas City Chiefs and took a pretty good football team and ruined it, and they ran him out of town after 3 years. They were a playoff team. He took control, and they consistently went downhill. Todd Haley had no business being the offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was horrible. In the 6 years he was here, the Steelers should have been at least to 2 Super Bowl appearances. You had the greatest wide receiver in AB. You had the best running back in the league in Le'Veon Bell. You had a Hall of Fame quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger. You had one of the best offensive lines in the league. And Todd Haley is doing stupid things. Here's the segue. Segue, if you don't know the meaning of the word, called a bridge. Kansas City, 2016. Your Steelers go down in the first round divisional playoff game and barely get out of there with a win, 16 points, with the best offense in the league. Todd Haley didn't know what to do with the Maserati he was given. Had to go to the Wizard of Oz that day. You remember it. Boswell got him out of Kansas City with the win because Todd Haley couldn't figure out how to score a touchdown with a Maserati for an offense. AB was so thrilled in the locker room of barely winning and not producing a touchdown that day that he got on Facebook while his head coach, Mike Tomlin, was talking to the team in the postgame, rah-rah speech. AB was an idiot to do that. A selfish idiot. Mel Blount once told me, when your coach is talking to you, sit in the front row and sit up and listen to him. Mel Blount, arguably one of the greatest shutdown corners ever to play the game. Mel Blount. Sit in the front row, listen to your coach. Not AB. He's on social media smiling like a moron. Pulling a Mr. Hyde. How about 2017 season? This is just tip of the iceberg. AB beat up a Gatorade cooler when he threw a temper tantrum during a 26-9 win against the Ravens. AB wasn't happy with that Gatorade cooler. It insulted him, so he assaulted it. What could he have possibly been so angry about in a 26-9 win over your rivals, the Ravens? Unbelievable. Last year, training camp in Latrobe, and I just posted this on our Pittsburgh Sports Talk Facebook page. I snapped a picture, and I've kept it on my phone since then because, well, there's certain things you can and can report from camp. And this seemed to be one that I should have kept my mouth shut. Don't want my media credentials pulled. Guess who was about 20 minutes late coming down onto the field for practice? Yep. So in the picture, and it's on my Facebook page, Pittsburgh Sports Talk, Facebook, you see AB putting his cleats on while the rest of his team has just broken calisthenics and is heading into, well, individual teams, units. Both Mike Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger went over and chastised quietly AB. And you could see they weren't happy. I mean, you just don't do these things if you're a team leader. Well, we know how the 2018 season ended up. With AB walking off the field in his fur coat. With AB walking off the field in his fur coat. With him not showing up to team walkthroughs. With walking out on practice the Wednesday before the playoff game. Throwing a ball at Ben. What do you do with a problem like Antonio Brown? I mean, Mike Tomlin in the past has said, when you have great athletes, great talents, superstars, divas, you got to treat them differently. Well, finally that rooster is come home to roost, baby. Did you burn your AB shirt this week? Are you empathetic for AB? It ain't about the money. He got a whole boatload from Pepsi, Pizza Hut, the Steelers. I assume Madden gave him some cash to put him on the front of their game. But I offer this conclusion for you. AB is a winner. He wants to win. He is a team individual. Individual who plays on a team. Individual first with him, then team. Even if you're as selfish and childish as AB, you want to win. Even if you're a little boy who throws temper tantrums and beats up Gatorade coolers for no apparent reason, you still want to win. And if your claim eventually is to be, I'm the greatest who's ever played, there's Jerry Rice and there's me, which AB seems to be wanting, leaning, having a PR campaign for these days, you got to have a Super Bowl ring to go with it. So blame Todd Haley. Blame Todd Haley. He had a Mercedes, Maserati, not a Volkswagen, a Lamborghini, whatever you want. Definitely not a Yugo. For you younger listeners, if you don't know what a Yugo is, Google it. You'll laugh. Funny little car. AB wanted his Super Bowl ring. It would have cemented his legacy as one of the greatest of all time. He was denied that because Todd Haley did not know how to run an offense. Todd Haley, who never played it down a ball in his life and the luckiest man to ever make $10 million, ran the wheels off of Le'Veon Bell, ran him broken, busted, ran him 39 times up in Buffalo. Todd Haley, who didn't realize he had a tandem of wide receivers in AB and Juju last year before. Todd Haley, who put 16 points up against Chiefs with that Maserati of an offense, led to Le'Veon Bell wanting out of here and being frustrated, led to Antonio Brown being frustrated and saying, I can't deal with this, I need a Super Bowl. All these variables have played into AB's problems, frustrations. Mike Tomlin, Art Rooney have done their best to try to even communicate with him. He won't even talk to him. Childish. Rumor is Art Rooney is down in Florida, Miami, where AB is this weekend. Rumor is, all over the buzz, Mr. Rooney reached out to AB. You know, Mr. Rooney, who agreed to give him $82 million. And AB has not even had the decency to return a call to the man and say, I'm sorry, I don't have the time, or let's spend half hour and have a Coke or a Pepsi. So, here's the bottom line with AB. Goodbye. Good riddance. Take your circus act someplace else. That would be kind of like this. You'll have to forget the analogy here, but I like banana splits. Really like banana splits. And if you brought to me the most beautiful banana split, and it was gorgeous, but my banana split wasn't made from chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla ice cream. It was just made of wax, and it was fake, and it was phony. That beautiful, beautiful banana split would be unedible. This is Pittsburgh Sports Talk. I'm your host, Randy the Tank Tantlinger. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.